you doing today? ResistanceBandTraining.com. Dave Schmitz coming at you again with a modified version of a hip flexor quadricep stretch. Now, I still like the old version, but one of the things that lacks in the old version is getting that transverse plane in. And what we know from the hip flexor quad complex, that a lot of people stretch it sagittally, some people stretch it in frontal plane, but a lot of times that rotational component doesn't get hit. Interesting enough, it's that rotational component that's probably the key to making sure that hip opens up and allows you to be very functional and able to perform at a high level if you're involved in athletics. So let me show you this quick modification in the hip flexor quad stretch that I came up with about a month or so ago, and I've been working with it and liking it a lot. Now, let's go ahead and go down. Now, the old version would have taken the top foot, hooked it on here, we just slid in this foot, locked it out, and there you go. Now, very easily can get the sagittal plane here. Kind of hard to get the frontal plane except by dropping the stretch leg, and then the rotational plane you get by trying to rotate your chest towards the floor. Still like that version, still think that's a very good option, but let me just show you this different direction that seems to lock the athletes especially. Lock them in a little bit to get a little bit better stretch. We're going to take and we're going to put it on the other foot. And what we're going to do is we're going to step over the band. So now it's the bottom leg that's stretching. Now immediately what happens is the bottom leg, especially if you're on a carpeted floor or a floor that has a little bit of resistance to it, you're going to be able to lock that leg in. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to lock out. But here's the deal. I only need to keep the band locked out with this arm. Freeze this arm up. I still have this leg for stability. And now I've got this one. And what I can do is really work on good rotation. Now if you still want more stretch, you just sneak that leg back a little bit by rotating forward, sneak it back, push it back, and then lock it out, and then you're back into it again. Great way to really open up the hip flexor, and where I'm getting the dynamic or the mobility portion of it is in the transverse plane by rotating and just stretching out. Again, you got to keep the top arm locked out so the lower abdominals stay engaged. Foot against the wall is still a great option, but in this case you can get away with it by digging it into the floor too a little bit. That will help you. And then lastly, getting that rotational plane in by just reaching back and stretching. Outstanding stretch. Now again, keep in mind, we're not trying to stretch the lumbar spine. People say, well, I'm getting a lot of pressure through my lumbar spine when I rotate. Two things could be happening. Number one, thoracic spine could be tight, and therefore you're driving it down through that lumbar spine. Secondly, you may not have your foot up forward enough. You might not be in a big enough staggered stance to take the pressure off L5. So keep that in consideration. Again, it's just another version of getting that lengthening through that hip flexor quad mechanism, which I think is very often just and simply not stretched because people can cheat through the lumbar spine.